Hey guys, Trip here, and welcome to another Tripdate. This is a chronicle of my inane ramblings where we talk about news, the channel, or whatever else is on my mind. All without the safety of a script to make me seem smarter than I am. Think of them as little fireside chats with your favorite talking gas mask. So, with 2018 finally coming to a close, I thought now would be the perfect time for another Tripdate. Speaking of which, 2018 was a long year, wasn't it? I honestly can't believe we got God of War, Metal Gear Survive, Spider-Man, and Fallout 76 all within the same year. But that's just kind of the theme of 2018, isn't it? At least when it comes to the gaming industry. There was this bizarre duality in the market this year. On one hand, the industry seems to be falling further into the dreaded live service model. You know, overproduced, underdeveloped games that offer very little in terms of quality in return for nickel and diming the player for all they're worth. But on the other hand, we got some games from the AAAs that were honestly incredible. Many of them solid single-player games without the need for loot boxes or microtransactions. Who'd have thunk it? But either way, 2018 was a confusing year for games. It's almost like the industry doesn't have a clear vision of what it wants to be. Which I guess makes sense considering there are hundreds of studios staffed with thousands of people, but usually entertainment industries follow certain trends, for good or ill. Meanwhile, the games industry seems a bit disjointed, almost floundering under the weight of its own success. I think some of this is due to how uncertain the market is right now. It's fair to say that the AAAs really banked on loot boxes being the future of video games. But with consumer rights groups, parents, and even government entities pushing back on these tactics, they may have jumped on that bandwagon a bit too soon. So now the industry is scattering in different directions, trying to figure out how to sustain its own growth without collapsing under its own weight. Or maybe I'm just talking out of my ass, who knows? But either way, 2018 is over, and I'm eager to see what's next for the industry. There's still a lot of games to look forward to. Cyberpunk is still on the horizon, The Outer Worlds looks promising, and we still don't know how much of a disaster Shenmue 3 will be. So without further ado, let's talk about some gaming news. First off, I wanted to talk about Ashes of Creation, an upcoming sandbox MMO a lot of us have been following for a while. In case you don't remember, Ashes of Creation is a sandbox MMO where you get to repopulate a fantasy world. You can build your own societies, trade with other cities, create governments, religions, businesses, and go to war with rival factions. The world will evolve over time as cities and nations rise and fall. It's one of the few MMOs where the story can actually move forward, where quests can actually change the world for everyone. It's the sort of thing that sounds far-fetched on paper, but through a combination of dynamic gameplay, social interaction between players, and a dedicated development team, it's actually pretty doable. Now I know what you're thinking. Trip, that sounds like EverQuest Next, and that ended up being vaporware. And you're right. One of the main reasons I got into Ashes of Creation was because it reminded me of a more feasible version of EverQuest Next. The company behind it had a lot of experience, and was a lot less sketchy than Daybreak. The developers took the time to break down exactly how these systems would work, and the development process has been relatively open, with the developers actually engaging with us on a regular basis. So with that in mind, you'd think I wouldn't have anything to complain about. Well, it turns out there's some trouble in paradise. See, I've been out of the loop for a while when it comes to Ashes of Creation. I just thought I'd let the game develop on its own and play it when it comes out. So imagine my surprise when I go to the forums and discover that they're broken. Now imagine my further surprise when I go to the subreddit and for some reason everyone is talking about a fucking Battle Royale game. Yeah, Ashes of Creation has a Battle Royale mode now. This is honestly pretty confusing, but basically what it comes down to is they decided to make a Battle Royale mode as a side project, something to help them test out the combat in the game. Let's set aside for a second how silly that sounds, how if they really wanted to test the combat, they could easily do it in a myriad of other ways that don't require them to make another game on top of it, let alone a game mode with vastly different mechanics that don't necessarily translate well into an MMO space. Let's take them at their word and assume that this isn't drawing resources away from the main game. My biggest problem with this is that they're monetizing it. Yes, this early access spin-off for a crowd-funded MMO that's intended to test the combat has microtransactions in it. Hilariously expensive microtransactions. It just reminds me so much of the promise of EverQuest Next and EverQuest Landmark. You guys remember, right? Landmark was this Minecraft spin-off because that's what was popular at the time, and the conceit was that by playing Landmark, we would be helping to create EverQuest Next. You know, by paying for it, we were helping to fund the main game. You know, if you play this little spin-off, it'll help us make the MMO, it'll help us test it, it'll give us additional funds. And then what happened? They shut down the MMO and kept the spin-off going because they thought that that was easier to make. I swear, I'm getting fucking flashbacks here. A lot of people see this as a distraction at best and a cash grab at worst, and honestly, I can't argue with them. I love everything I've seen so far from Ashes of Creation. I want this game to succeed more than any other game I'm looking forward to this year, more than The Outer Worlds, more than Cyberpunk. I want this game to be good. But this is a red flag. Honestly, it's the combination of things that pisses me off. This entire clusterfuck smashed together. The fact that the forums went down with no real explanation and no real communication for a while. The fact that they made a generic battle royale mode in the first place and then claim that it's to test the combat. The fact that, even if that is the case, that they're monetizing this testing ground, which would imply that this spin-off is drawing funds and resources that could be better spent elsewhere, that somehow all the Kickstarter money wasn't enough for them, in which case I question their budgeting, or it means that this is indeed just a fucking cash grab. If nothing else, it makes me nervous for how they plan on monetizing this game when it comes out. Like, let's say that the game ends up being great, which I still think it will be. We already know this game will have microtransactions, because, I mean, as much as I would prefer a subscription model, those aren't really viable anymore, I don't think, so, okay, fine, I get it. But with this in mind, knowing that they're willing and able to monetize something that is supposed to be for testing purposes, that they want to have it both ways like that, it doesn't add up, and it just... Again, I'm not comparing it to EverQuest Next, but it's giving me slight EverQuest Next vibes. Those first few months when things started to go off the rails and go downhill. Now, hopefully things don't end up like EverQuest Next, but like I said, this is just a red flag, and I thought you guys should know about it. And like, who knows, maybe I'm just being paranoid, and I do have a history of being very biased against microtransactions in any form, so I want to know what you guys think about this. Is this more normal than I'm making it out to be? Am I still just burnt on EverQuest Next and I'm being a little overly cautious? I'm curious what you guys think. Ugh, that was a fucking mouthful. So what else is on the docket? Oh, yeah, The Outer Worlds. Guys, I really gotta talk about this game. I'm probably going to do a video about it at some point. I've already written an article on it. You can check it out on Comicsverse. I'll probably leave a link in the description, but I have a lot to say about this game. The Outer Worlds is an upcoming sandbox RPG developed by Obsidian and led by the original creators of Fallout. In other words, it sort of feels like an alternate reality Bethesda game, where instead of going down the route of Fallout 4 and 76, they instead took a few pages from Obsidian and Fallout New Vegas, expanding upon that depth of gameplay, the replayability, the diversity in skills, and the deep immersive atmosphere. Considering the similarities and apparent improvements on Bethesda's formula, it's hard not to see this as a direct attack on their dominance. And honestly, I think that's a good thing. I'm not just saying that as someone who notoriously hates Bethesda. I've gone on record numerous times saying that their biggest problem is their lack of competition. No one makes the kind of RPGs Bethesda makes, and this leads audiences to believe that these games can't be done better. And Bethesda knows that people think this. They have no drive to improve because they're the only game in town. But now the Outer Worlds is coming along and showing people that you can have the best of both worlds. You can have an open-ended sandbox RPG with an emphasis on freedom and exploration, while still having the depth of gameplay, the choices, the consequences, and the roleplay of an isometric RPG. Like I said, I'll talk about this more later, but I'm really excited about this game, and I really hope it does well. So what's next for the channel? Well, I'm thinking about getting into streaming. Now I know that's something every YouTuber does eventually, but I actually have some ideas for games I really want to play. Games that I have a lot to say about, for good or ill. If I were to start streaming, that would kind of be the common thread. I only want to stream games that I know I have a lot to say about. Either that, or games I can do a lot of wacky, experimental stuff with. If you want an example of the latter, check out RT Games. He does a lot of the same games I'd like to stream, and he always does something interesting with them. I'll leave a link in the description. Couple more things. We're almost at 10,000 subscribers, which means we're almost at the point where I can't pretend this isn't a real job anymore. I know I say this a lot, but I'm going to try to make videos more consistently. That's part of why I'm doing this series. I actually planned on doing this more consistent content a while ago, but honestly, between the ear infection I had a couple months ago, my computer getting busted twice, and then holiday traveling, now is really the best time to buckle down and get started with this. So what does this mean for you guys? Well, first off, I'm not going to stop doing my long-form videos. What it does mean is that I'm going to try and do some smaller stuff every other week in between my longer videos. So maybe you'll see a Tripdate, or maybe I'll stream something, or maybe I'll just make some remarks on some smaller things that are going on in the industry, who knows? Point is, I want to give you guys more content more often without sacrificing the quality of my mainline stuff, and I think this is the best way to do that. And that also means I'm going to finally be updating my Patreon, not out of any expectation that people are going to donate, but again, just to kind of at least pretend I have some level of professionality. I'm also going to be using it the way I originally intended, which is sort of as a hub for all of my stuff. So, for example, if you want a place to see all of my articles on Comicsverse, you can go there. If you want to see every video I've done in a certain month, you can go there. If you want to see any little blurbs I have to say about the channel, you can go there. Whether you're donating or not, I want it to be a place where, like, your one-stop shop for psychotrip shit. Along with that, I'm also going to be starting an Instagram account, but that's going to be a little bit further down the line. Basically, when it comes to social media stuff and trying to put yourself out there, that's apparently something that you need to do these days. And it's funny because I use social media a lot, but not really the most popular stuff. I'm more someone who... The only social media that's popular that I use is Twitter, and you guys have seen how horrific and terrible I can be on Twitter, so I don't necessarily recommend that's your main place to find me. So, yeah, Instagram, we'll be doing that soon. We've actually been taking certain, I don't want to say classes, but kind of like, seminars at Comicsverse for how to better utilize social media, and one of the big things was Instagram, so that's probably the main avenue I'm going to be using in the future. But yeah, that about wraps up this Tripdate. If you guys have any questions, suggestions, or video ideas, let me know in the comments. I just realized I don't have an outro for this series yet. Can someone roll the credits, please? Oh, thank God. Hey guys, Trip here. If you liked that video, why not watch some more? Hit that like button and make sure to share this video on Reddit and social media. Have you ever wanted to wear my face like a grizzly pelt? Well, check out Rage On. There you'll find all sorts of psychotrip merchandise to satisfy your grim needs. Contrary to popular belief, I am not a space pirate and lack the funds to buy a spaceship. Together, we can fix this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.